They had no idea she was trained by a legendary sniper, until one shot silenced the range. To those who met her for the first time, she appeared ordinary, an unassuming woman in her late 20s, dressed simply in jeans and a comfortable shirt. Her brown hair was pulled back into a neat ponytail, and her soft, observant eyes seemed to notice everything without revealing much. Today, like every other day, Emily walked into the shooting range with a calm, steady pace, carrying her bag and equipment carefully, as if each item had been placed with intention and care. The shooting range was buzzing with energy. Men and women of all ages were there, some veterans of the range, others new but eager to prove themselves. The sound of rifles echoing, the sharp smell of gunpowder, and the occasional laughter and chatter created a lively atmosphere. Emily, however, seemed almost out of place in this loud environment. She didn't rush, she didn't try to stand out, and she didn't appear nervous. She simply walked to the counter, signed in quietly, and nodded politely to the instructor. "Good morning," Emily said softly, her voice calm and even. The instructor, a middle-aged man named Mr. Harper, looked up from his clipboard, surprised by her composed demeanor. Most newcomers fumbled with their forms, hesitated when greeted, or nervously scanned the room. Not Emily. There was something about her that suggested she was comfortable in her own skin, confident yet understated. Mr. Harper gave her a nod and a small smile, the kind reserved for those who arrived without unnecessary fuss. As Emily made her way to her assigned lane, the other shooters couldn't help but notice her. She didn't announce her presence, she didn't show off her gear, and she didn't make small talk. Instead, she quietly unpacked her rifle, cleaned it meticulously, and arranged her accessories with precision. Some of the more experienced shooters raised eyebrows. "She's new here," one whispered to another. "I don't think she's ready for this level," another added. "Yeah, but look at how calmly she handles her rifle. That's unusual for a beginner." Emily could hear the whispers, though she didn't react. She had grown accustomed to being underestimated, and she didn't mind. In her line of work, quiet observation and patience were far more valuable than loud boasts or empty displays. She adjusted her stance slightly, checking the alignment of her sights, and then sat down on the bench, ready to begin. Her movements were deliberate, precise, almost ritualistic. Anyone watching closely could tell that she was not entirely new to firearms, though she made no attempt to showcase her experience. The first few moments on the range were uneventful. Emily followed the standard instructions from the instructor, taking safety precautions seriously and observing the other shooters as they began their practice rounds. She noticed how some rushed through their drills, eager to impress or compete, while others were tense, hands shaking as they aimed at targets. Emily, however, moved with a rhythm of her own. She loaded her rifle, checked her breathing, and aimed with a calm focus that seemed almost unnatural for someone who had supposedly just arrived. As the minutes passed, a few of the shooters grew curious. "Do you shoot much?" one of the men asked, trying to make conversation. Emily glanced up briefly, her expression neutral but friendly. "I have some experience," she replied simply. That was all she said. She didn't elaborate, she didn't brag, and she didn't feel the need to explain herself. The man nodded, somewhat confused, but then returned to his own practice, realizing that there was little more to gain from questioning her. Emily's mind, however, was not on conversation. She was observing everything around her, the movements of the shooters, the way the rifles recoiled, the slight deviations in aim caused by nerves or overconfidence. Her eyes were sharp, noting details that most people would miss. She could tell which shooters had solid training, which were relying on luck, and which were simply trying to keep up appearances. This ability to read people and situations came naturally to her, and it was a skill honed over years of rigorous discipline. Yet today she kept it to herself, blending in with the group while silently assessing the dynamics of the range. As the session continued, Emily began her warm-up practice. She didn't rush, each shot was deliberate. She adjusted her aim carefully, aligning her sights with precision, and fired at the targets methodically. The other shooters occasionally glanced at her, noting how controlled her movements were. There was a quiet confidence in her actions that was hard to ignore. One of the men whispered to his friend, "She's either lying about being new or she's hiding something big." His friend shrugged, equally puzzled. Emily, meanwhile, maintained her composure. She knew that the first impression she gave was important, not because she wanted recognition, but because she understood how perceptions could influence behavior. By appearing calm, quiet, and unassuming, she encouraged others to underestimate her, giving her an advantage in the unspoken competition of skill and focus. She didn't need to dominate the range with noise or bravado. Her skills would speak for themselves when the time came. During a brief break, Emily stepped outside the range to take a breath of fresh air. The winter morning was crisp, and the sunlight reflected off the metal surfaces of the shooting range, creating a bright, almost blinding glare. She closed her eyes for a moment, centering herself. Her training had taught her the importance of mental clarity, and she took every opportunity to practice it. People passing by might have thought she was simply enjoying the cool air, but in reality, she was preparing her mind for the challenges ahead, maintaining focus, and reinforcing the calm that had become her signature presence. When she returned to her lane, the next round of shooters began preparing for a long-distance challenge. Emily observed silently, noting the nerves and excitement among her peers. Some were clearly trying to impress, adjusting their rifles repeatedly, while others muttered to themselves, worrying about hitting distant targets. Emily, in contrast, remained composed. She checked her rifle one last time, adjusted her stance, and waited patiently. She didn't need to show off. She had learned that timing and precision mattered far more than speed or showmanship. The instructor, Mr. Harper, called the group to attention. "Next, we have a long-distance challenge," he announced, his voice carrying across the range. "This will test your accuracy and focus. Take your positions and remember safety first." The shooters scrambled to align themselves with the targets, some fidgeting with their sights, others taking deep breaths to calm their nerves. Emily, however, moved with deliberate calm. She positioned herself carefully, aligning her sights with meticulous care, and waited for the signal. Her movements were fluid, almost graceful, as if she had been doing this for years, even though she had yet to reveal the depth of her skill. As the others prepared, Emily allowed herself a quiet smile. She enjoyed the challenge, not because she wanted recognition, but because she valued the test of skill. For her, shooting was not about proving herself to others. It was about the mastery of discipline, focus, and patience. Every movement, every breath, every adjustment was part of a larger practice that had been ingrained in her through years of rigorous training. Today, she would remain unseen, unnoticed, a quiet presence among the noise and chatter of the range. And yet, even in her calm and understated manner, there was an unmistakable aura about her, a sense of capability that some of the more observant shooters could sense, even if they couldn't put their finger on it. Emily was not just another participant. She was someone whose skill and experience were hidden beneath a quiet exterior, waiting for the right moment to be revealed. As part one drew to a close, Emily's focus remained unwavering. She was ready for the next challenge, ready to show that appearances could be deceiving, but she would do so on her own terms. The other shooters had no idea what was coming. They saw only a quiet, polite woman who seemed ordinary, completely unaware that she carried a level of expertise that could leave even the most seasoned marksmen in awe. The stage was set, the tension building silently in the air, and Emily was at the center of it all, calm, prepared, and completely in control. Emily had settled into her lane comfortably, her rifle resting in front of her, the familiar weight of it reassuring in her hands. Around her, the atmosphere had changed subtly. The warm-up session was over, and the long-distance challenge was about to begin. Shooters whispered nervously to each other, adjusting their grips and checking their sights one more time. The range had grown quieter, the casual chatter replaced by a tense focus. Emily, however, remained calm, her posture relaxed yet precise, her eyes quietly observing everything around her. She noticed the subtle differences in how each shooter prepared. Some were too eager, moving quickly and overcompensating for their nerves. Others were tense, hands shaking slightly, barely able to align their sights properly. Emily could see each person's strengths and weaknesses almost immediately. Her training had taught her to read situations and people carefully, to notice even the smallest detail that could affect performance. She didn't react outwardly. She simply made mental notes, preparing herself for the moment when it would be her turn to demonstrate her skill. The instructor, Mr. Harper, walked down the line, observing each shooter carefully. "Remember, this is about accuracy, not speed," he reminded them. "Take your time, focus, control your breathing." His voice carried authority, but the shooters were now anxious. Many had come to the range eager to impress, hoping to prove they were skilled marksmen. Emily, in contrast, had no such need. She was here for herself, for the discipline, for the quiet satisfaction of knowing she could perform perfectly when it mattered. Emily started her practice rounds. She didn't rush. Each shot was deliberate. She adjusted her stance slightly, ensuring her posture was optimal, and aligned her sights with careful precision. The sound of the first few shots echoed through the range. Some hit the target dead center, others missed slightly, and a few went completely off. Emily's shots, however, were consistent, smooth, and precise. She barely seemed to move as she fired, yet each bullet found its mark with remarkable accuracy. A few of the shooters began to notice. "Did you see that?" one whispered to another. "She's hitting almost every shot perfectly." Another nodded, trying to hide his surprise. "Maybe she's more experienced than she looks," he said quietly, but Emily didn't react. She didn't look for recognition, and she didn't try to impress. She simply continued her calm, methodical approach, firing each shot as if it were the most natural thing in the world. What the others didn't realize was that Emily's skill wasn't just about shooting. It was about control, patience, and observation. She watched how the rifle reacted after each shot, how small adjustments in her breathing affected her aim, and how subtle shifts in her posture could improve accuracy. She anticipated the slight sway of the target, calculated distances intuitively, and maintained perfect mental focus. Every movement, every calculation was done silently, without drawing attention. As Emily fired, she noticed a young man a few lanes down struggling to keep his rifle steady. He was frustrated, muttering under his breath and readjusting his sights repeatedly. Emily watched quietly, recognizing the signs of someone overthinking and losing focus. She didn't offer advice, that wasn't her style, but she did take a mental note of his errors, understanding exactly why he was missing. This quiet observation was part of her method. She learned from every situation, every shooter, every mistake around her. A small group of shooters had started to gather near the range entrance, watching the session unfold. Some were curious about Emily, intrigued by how composed and skilled she seemed. Whispers traveled through the crowd. "She's incredible," one said. "I've never seen someone so calm and precise." Another added, "Do you think she's really new? There's no way a beginner can shoot like that." Emily overheard nothing. She remained completely focused, aware of her surroundings but fully immersed in her own practice. The instructor called for a short pause. "Take 5, everyone," he announced. Shooters relaxed slightly, some wiping sweat from their brows, others checking their rifles again. Emily, however, didn't see the need for a break. She used this moment to study the other shooters, watching how they handled pressure, how they reacted to mistakes, and how their confidence fluctuated. She knew that skill wasn't just about the rifle or the target. It was about mindset, discipline, and the ability to remain calm under pressure. During the break, Emily quietly adjusted her rifle, checking the alignment, cleaning the barrel, and making subtle adjustments that no one else would notice. She moved with precision and care, her hands steady, her mind clear. A few shooters glanced over, curiosity mixed with admiration. They didn't know what to make of her. She didn't fit the usual profile of someone trained at an elite level, yet her skill was undeniable. Emily, of course, gave no indication of her thoughts or training. She simply prepared herself for the next round, confident and focused. As the shooters returned to their positions, Mr. Harper announced the next exercise. "We're moving to a more difficult challenge," he said. "Targets will be at longer distances, and this will test not just accuracy, but focus and control under pressure." The room buzzed with nervous energy. Many shooters adjusted their sights nervously, taking deep breaths and trying to steady their hands. Emily, however, remained composed. She aligned her sights with quiet determination, her body perfectly still, her mind completely present. The first shooter took aim and fired. The shot went wide. A murmur of disappointment ran through the range. The next shooter adjusted, tried again, and missed slightly. Emily observed silently, noting the changes in posture, the tension in muscles, the way anticipation affected aim. When her turn finally came, she moved with calm confidence. She didn't rush. She didn't feel pressure. She took her time, aligning her sights perfectly, controlling her breathing and focusing on the target. Her first shot hit dead center. The sound echoed through the range, followed by a brief moment of stunned silence. The other shooters glanced over, their eyes widening in surprise. Emily's second shot was just as precise. Her third, by the fourth, whispers were spreading. "Who is she?" one shooter murmured. "How can she shoot like that?" Another shook his head, disbelief evident on his face. Emily didn't smile or react. She continued with her calm, methodical pace, each shot reinforcing the quiet confidence she carried. The instructor, Mr. Harper, finally stepped closer. He had seen many skilled shooters in his years, but Emily's precision and control were exceptional. He watched her fire, noting the perfect alignment, the steady hands, the effortless focus. He could see that this wasn't luck. This was skill honed over years of careful training and discipline. And yet, Emily gave no indication of pride or ego. She simply continued her practice, silent, composed, and fully in control. Around the range, other shooters began to take notice more openly. Some whispered to each other, trying to understand how she could be so skilled. A few skeptics began to watch her more closely, testing their own abilities against hers. Emily, however, remained unaffected. She didn't compete with others, she competed with herself. Her goal was mastery, precision, and control, not attention or admiration. During a brief pause, Emily allowed herself a small moment of reflection. She remembered her training, the countless hours of practice, the lessons in patience, the importance of observing rather than reacting. All of it had led to this point, a place where she could demonstrate skill without needing to announce it, where her calm demeanor and quiet focus were more powerful than any boast or showmanship. She knew that her moment would come, that the right time would reveal the depth of her ability. Until then, she remained patient, blending in while quietly preparing for the challenge ahead. As part two of her story drew to a close, Emily's reputation among the shooters had quietly begun to shift. No longer was she seen as just a quiet newcomer. Small murmurs of respect and curiosity spread through the range. Some began to speculate about her background, others simply marveled at her skill. Emily, however, remained unchanged. She didn't seek recognition, she didn't need it. She simply prepared for the next phase, knowing that soon everyone would understand just how extraordinary her abilities truly were. The tension was building. Emily could sense it in the room, the mix of curiosity, admiration, and a subtle edge of disbelief. She had remained hidden until now, her skill understated, her presence quiet. But the moment to reveal her full capability was approaching. She knew that one perfect shot could change everything, that one moment of focus could silence the doubts and whispers of those around her. And Emily was ready. Calm, composed, and unassuming, she was about to show that there was far more to her than anyone had guessed. The air in the shooting range had changed. The casual chatter and background noise had faded into a tense silence, replaced by anticipation and curiosity. Shooters had begun to notice Emily in a way they hadn't before. No one could deny her skill, but until now it had been subtle, her calm demeanor, her precise movements, her quiet efficiency. Now the long-distance challenge was about to begin, and all eyes were on her. She didn't move with arrogance or attempt to draw attention. Instead, she remained composed, standing at her lane with the same calm confidence that had defined her since the moment she arrived. Emily took a deep breath and looked down the range. The targets were placed at an impressive distance, much farther than most of the shooters were comfortable with. Some were nervously checking their rifles, adjusting sights over and over, and muttering words of encouragement to themselves. Emily, however, simply assessed the situation calmly. She measured the distance in her mind, noting the position of the targets, the lighting in the room, and even the faint draft that occasionally swept across the range. She had trained to notice these things instinctively, and now all that training would come into play. The instructor, Mr. Harper, stepped forward and addressed the shooters. "This is the ultimate test of precision," he said. "You must control your breathing, steady your hands, and focus entirely on the target. Anyone can take a shot, but very few can hit the mark under this pressure." He paused, his gaze briefly falling on Emily. There was a flicker of recognition in his eyes. He had seen many skilled marksmen in his career, but Emily's calm presence suggested something more. He nodded slightly, acknowledging the silent confidence she carried. The first shooter stepped up, a young man eager to prove himself. He adjusted his rifle nervously, took a deep breath, and fired. The bullet hit slightly off-center, eliciting a few murmurs from the onlookers. The next shooter tried, missing slightly as well. One by one, each participant struggled with the challenge. Their nervousness showed, their focus faltered, and their shots reflected the tension they felt. All the while, Emily remained steady, observing without judgment, preparing herself for her turn. When it was finally Emily's turn, the range seemed to hold its collective breath. She adjusted her stance with the same deliberate calmness she had maintained all along. Her hands were steady, her posture perfect, and her eyes focused intently on the target. She didn't glance around at the other shooters or respond to the whispers of awe that were beginning to ripple through the crowd. She was in her own world now, fully present, fully in control. Emily raised her rifle carefully, aligning the sights with meticulous precision. Every movement was deliberate, controlled, and measured. She inhaled slowly, filling her lungs with steady, even breaths, and then exhaled gently, letting her body settle into perfect alignment. Her finger hovered lightly on the trigger, poised yet relaxed. In that moment, time seemed to slow, and everyone in the range could sense the quiet intensity radiating from her. She was not merely taking a shot. She was performing a culmination of years of training, discipline, and focus. Then with a single, smooth motion, she squeezed the trigger. The sound of the rifle echoed sharply through the range, followed by an almost eerie silence. The bullet traveled with perfect precision, hitting the center of the target with a sharp, satisfying impact. The entire room froze. Shooters and onlookers alike stared, mouths slightly open, unable to comprehend what they had just witnessed. The quiet, unassuming woman they had underestimated had just achieved something remarkable, something few could imagine, let alone accomplish. Emily didn't celebrate or acknowledge the stunned silence. She remained composed, lowering her rifle slowly and breathing evenly. She understood the effect her shot had on the room, but pride was not part of her character. What mattered to her was the skill itself, the precision, and the mastery of her craft. The other shooters, however, were struggling to process what had just happened. Murmurs grew louder, whispers of disbelief turning into audible astonishment. "Did she just hit dead center from that distance?" one of the shooters asked, barely able to form the words. Another shook his head in disbelief. "I've been shooting for years and I can't even come close," he admitted quietly. The room was alive with a mixture of awe, respect, and a hint of envy. For all their experience, no one had been prepared for the quiet mastery Emily had just demonstrated. Emily prepared for her second shot. The crowd was tense now, but she remained calm, unfazed by the attention. She took the same careful steps, aligning her sights, controlling her breathing, and steadying her hands. Then she fired again. The bullet hit the target dead center just as perfectly as the first. Gasps echoed through the range. Some shooters could hardly believe their eyes. Others glanced at the instructor, who nodded subtly, a silent acknowledgement that Emily's skill was extraordinary. Her third shot followed the same pattern. Perfect. Center precision. Each shot reinforced the growing realization among the shooters and spectators. Emily was no ordinary marksman. Every movement, every breath, every calculation was executed with flawless control. The quiet woman who had seemed ordinary just moments ago had revealed a level of expertise that left everyone in awe. Some onlookers tried to rationalize what they were seeing. "Maybe she's had years of practice," one said. Another added, "Or maybe she's naturally talented." But Emily's performance went beyond natural talent or casual practice. It was the result of rigorous training, discipline, and a mindset that few could match. She had been trained to excel under pressure, to remain calm when others faltered, and to achieve perfection through focus and patience. As she prepared for her fourth and final shot, Emily's mind was clear. There was no doubt, no hesitation. She had reached a level of concentration where distractions no longer mattered. The room seemed to fade away, leaving only her, the rifle, and the target. Her finger moved lightly on the trigger, and the bullet flew with the same flawless accuracy as the previous ones. It struck the center of the target as if guided by an unseen hand. The effect was immediate. The entire range fell silent, not a sound except the faint echo of the shot. Shooters and onlookers alike were frozen, staring at the target in disbelief. The instructor, who had seen countless skilled marksmen over the years, could only shake his head in amazement. Emily had achieved something exceptional, something rare. Her composure, precision, and mastery were undeniable. For a few moments, no one spoke. Then whispers began spreading quickly through the range. "Who is she?" someone asked. "She must have had serious training," another replied. The skepticism and doubt that had accompanied her arrival were gone. In their place was awe, respect, and a growing understanding that Emily was extraordinary. Emily lowered her rifle slowly, maintaining her calm demeanor. She didn't gloat, she didn't seek attention, and she didn't react to the astonished eyes around her. For her, the satisfaction came from the skill itself, from knowing she had executed each shot perfectly, from understanding the discipline and control required to achieve such precision. She had revealed her abilities, but only to the extent that was necessary to complete the challenge. The instructor finally stepped forward, his expression a mix of respect and admiration. "That was incredible," he said, his voice steady but filled with genuine amazement. "I've seen many skilled shooters in my career, but this level of control and accuracy, it's rare." He paused, glancing at Emily with a knowing smile. "Clearly, your training has been exceptional." Around the range, other shooters were still processing what had happened. Some nodded quietly in recognition, others muttered words of admiration, and a few simply stared, unable to articulate their surprise. Emily had not only demonstrated her skill, but she had also shattered expectations. The quiet, unassuming newcomer was, in fact, a master marksman, and everyone present had witnessed her reveal. As the tension in the room began to ease, Emily allowed herself a small smile, a subtle acknowledgement of her success. She knew that her moment of revelation had come, that the time for quiet observation and patience had led to this point. And yet she remained humble, composed, and focused, understanding that true mastery was not about impressing others, but about maintaining control, discipline, and precision, no matter the circumstances. The long-distance challenge had ended, but the impression Emily left was lasting. Shooters who had doubted her now looked at her with newfound respect. Onlookers who had been curious were now genuinely astonished. And the quiet woman who had seemed ordinary moments ago had revealed herself to be extraordinary, trained, skilled, and capable in ways that few could imagine. As part 3 drew to a close, Emily packed up her rifle carefully, checking each piece of equipment as she had done countless times before. She didn't rush, she didn't boast, and she didn't allow the astonishment around her to affect her calm. She had completed the challenge, revealed her hidden skill, and left an impression that would not soon be forgotten. The stage was set for the final part of her story, where her past and training would finally be acknowledged, and the respect she had earned would be fully recognized. The range was still buzzing with disbelief as Emily packed up her rifle carefully, each movement deliberate. Precise and calm, her actions seemed almost ritualistic, a quiet reflection of the years of training and discipline that had brought her to this moment. Shooters and onlookers were still processing what they had just witnessed. The whispers had grown into conversations filled with admiration and astonishment. No one had expected the quiet, unassuming newcomer to demonstrate such extraordinary skill, and yet here she was, composed and understated, leaving a lasting impression. Mr. Harper, the instructor, stepped forward, his expression a mixture of pride and awe. He had trained countless shooters over the years, and he had seen remarkable talent, but what Emily had displayed today was exceptional. "Emily," he said, his voice steady but filled with genuine respect, "your performance was incredible. Few people have the control, focus, and precision that you demonstrated today." He paused, glancing at the crowd. "I think it's time everyone here understood just how skilled you really are." Emily looked up, her calm eyes meeting his. She nodded slightly, acknowledging his words without arrogance. "Thank you," she said softly. "I've learned that focus and patience matter more than speed or recognition." Her humility only added to the respect the crowd felt. No one doubted her skill now, but her quiet demeanor and composed presence made her extraordinary in a way that went beyond technical ability. The crowd leaned in, eager to learn more about her background. Emily had arrived quietly, without fanfare, and now she stood at the center of attention, not seeking it, but naturally commanding it through her actions. "Mr. Harper began to share what many had suspected, but had not dared to ask aloud. "Emily has been trained by one of the most legendary snipers in the world," he announced. "Her precision, focus, and control are the result of years of intensive training, discipline, and experience that very few people ever attain." A murmur of astonishment spread through the range. Some shooters exchanged incredulous glances, while others simply stared at Emily, trying to reconcile the quiet woman in front of them with the incredible skill they had just witnessed. Whispers of respect and admiration filled the air. No wonder she was so calm, someone said quietly. She wasn't just skilled, she was trained to be this good. Another added, I can't believe we almost underestimated her. Emily remained composed throughout the revelations. She didn't correct anyone, she didn't boast, and she didn't seek applause. She had trained for moments like this, where skill and composure mattered far more than recognition. She understood that her training had taught her more than just marksmanship. It had taught her patience, humility, and the value of observing rather than reacting. Every shot she had fired was a reflection of years of discipline, focus, and quiet preparation. As the crowd began to settle, a few shooters approached her cautiously, their expressions a mix of awe and curiosity. Emily, one said hesitantly, how did you learn to shoot like that? You were incredible. Emily smiled faintly, her expression calm. It's not just about shooting, she replied. It's about focus, patience, and understanding the situation. Skill alone isn't enough. You have to be calm, disciplined, and aware at all times. Another shooter asked, were you nervous at all? Emily shook her head. Nervousness only interferes with control. I focus on what I can control, the rifle, my stance, my breathing. Everything else falls into place when you maintain that focus. Her words carried weight. They were not just about shooting. They were lessons in discipline, concentration, and the quiet strength that comes from preparation and experience. Some of the onlookers who had initially doubted her now stood in respectful silence. They had come to the range expecting a casual challenge, a test of skill among peers, but what they had witnessed was something far greater. Emily had not only demonstrated technical mastery, but had also revealed the importance of composure, mental clarity, and discipline. Her example left a mark on everyone present, inspiring both admiration and reflection. As the session continued, Mr. Harper spoke to the group. What Emily has shown today is more than just marksmanship. It's the result of years of dedication, training, and discipline. Let this be a lesson, not only about skill, but about patience, humility, and the importance of focus under pressure. The shooters nodded, many still in awe of the quiet woman who had now become the center of attention. Emily took a moment to reflect quietly. She had revealed her skill, and the respect of the range was now firmly established. Yet she didn't feel the need to dwell on it. For her, the value of the day lay in the discipline, the focus, and the execution. She understood that true mastery wasn't about recognition or applause. It was about performing at your best when it mattered most, regardless of whether anyone noticed. Some of the younger shooters, inspired by her performance, approached her to ask questions. How do you stay so calm under pressure? One asked. Emily considered the question carefully. It's about preparation, she said. You train until your body and mind know what to do without thinking. When that happens, focus comes naturally, and fear or doubt doesn't get in the way. Her answer was simple, yet profound. It revealed the depth of her training and the mindset that had enabled her to achieve what the others had witnessed. Another asked, did you practice every day? Emily nodded. Yes, consistency matters more than intensity. Daily practice, small improvements, learning from every mistake, it all adds up. Over time, skill and focus become second nature. Her advice was not just about shooting. It was a lesson in discipline, persistence, and dedication, applicable to any challenge in life. As the day drew to a close, the atmosphere in the range had completely transformed. The initial curiosity and skepticism had given way to respect, admiration, and a sense of inspiration. Emily had not only demonstrated extraordinary skill, but had also shown the importance of patience, humility, and discipline. The shooters who had once underestimated her now saw her as a model of mastery and calm under pressure. Emily packed up her gear carefully, checking each piece meticulously. She didn't rush, she didn't boast, and she didn't seek recognition. She had completed her challenge, revealed her hidden talent, and left an impression that would last long after she walked away. The respect she had earned was genuine, and it was based not only on her skill, but on the quiet strength and discipline she embodied. Before leaving, she turned briefly to the group. Remember, she said softly, skill alone is not enough. Focus, patience, and discipline matter just as much. Learn from every experience, practice consistently, and stay calm. That's what truly makes a difference. Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of experience and the wisdom of someone who had trained at the highest level. As Emily walked out of the range, the room remained filled with quiet admiration. Shooters exchanged glances, some still in awe, others reflecting on the lessons they had just learned. The day had begun as an ordinary session at a shooting range, but it had ended with a powerful demonstration of skill, discipline, and quiet mastery. Emily, the unassuming newcomer, had become a source of inspiration, proving that appearances could be deceiving and that true skill was often hidden beneath calm, humble exteriors. Even as she disappeared from view, the impact of her presence lingered. The instructors, shooters, and onlookers would remember this day for a long time, not just for the extraordinary shots she had fired, but for the example she had set. Emily had shown that excellence was not about recognition or boastfulness, but about preparation, focus, and the quiet strength to perform perfectly when it mattered most. By the end of the day, the whispers of disbelief had transformed into stories of admiration. "She is remarkable," one shooter said quietly. "I hope I can be even half as composed as she is." Another added, "I've never seen anyone handle a challenge like that." "She's a true professional." Emily's reputation had shifted completely, and the respect she had earned was well-deserved. As she walked away from the range, Emily reflected on the events of the day. She had arrived quietly, unnoticed, underestimated by most, and yet she had completed her challenge with precision and composure. The recognition she received was not the goal, but it was a natural consequence of her skill and discipline. She understood that the lessons she had demonstrated, the importance of focus, patience, and humility, would stay with those who had witnessed them. The sun had begun to set, casting a warm glow over the range. Emily paused for a moment, taking a deep breath and savoring the quiet satisfaction of a challenge well executed. She had shown her abilities, earned respect, and left a lasting impression, not through arrogance or showmanship, but through skill, discipline, and quiet mastery. The day had ended, but the story of her performance, her training, and her remarkable calm under pressure would be remembered for a long time. As Part 4 concludes, Emily faded back into her ordinary life, a hero hidden in plain sight. The shooters who had once doubted her would never forget the demonstration of skill they had witnessed, and the lessons she imparted would remain with them long after the echoes of the shots had faded. Emily had proven, in a way that words could hardly capture, that true mastery comes from preparation, focus, patience, and humility, and that sometimes the most extraordinary people are the ones who appear most ordinary.